Hey y'all, my name is Tony Paradis. I'm a licensed dietitian and personal trainer, the owner of Food and Fitness Online. Check out my website. I'm going to link that down below at foodandfitnessonline.com. Today I am giving a critique and my review of the Max Muscle Plan by Brad Schoenfeld. First of all, before I get into any details, if you don't want to watch this video, here's the cliffs. This is a great book, and if you want to build muscle and get stronger, Brad really knows his onions, and you should definitely get this book. But I do have some insight, and I'd like to give that to you guys today. So who am I? I'm a registered dietitian. I've been a personal trainer for about 9 years now, certified with the Cooper Institute, USA Powerlifting, and USA Weightlifting. I'm the owner of Food and Fitness. That's where we are here today. I own a gym, so I've been training lots and lots of clients. I've been training myself for a while, and I've competed this year with the help of the Max Muscle Plan in the amateur men's physique through the NGA and powerlifting through WAPDL. And today I have some notes with me, so I will be referring to my notes to give you my most in-depth experience with the Max Muscle Plan. My experience was a full year. I ran 2 cycles of the plan. It's a 6-month-long program. This was my first time on a hypertrophy-based program. For the majority of my training, I've been focusing on strength training, so this is the first time we've been doing hypertrophy. So I use this to prep for the NGA Men's Physique Show and to compete in the WAPDL. Okay, so results. Physique, I came in wonderfully at second to last place, so not so good. But in the powerlifting competition, I came in first place for the amateur class, and I qualified for nationals. Okay, but overall my results were a good improvement. Okay, I'm going to post the pictures so that you can look at the bodybuilding aspect of that down below. I'm not a video editing pro, so I'm just going to link them down there. Powerlifting results, I did cut weight. I got down to 136 body weight. I benched 242, and I deadlift 413 pounds, which I set my personal goal of doing a triple body weight deadlift, so I was quite pleased with that. And once again, I would recommend this book if you want to get bigger and stronger. Okay, let's talk a little bit about Brad Schoenfeld, the author of this book. Brad has his PhD in exercise science. He's published in scientific journals. He has recognition from different governing bodies. He's a lifetime natural bodybuilder, and what I found very nice is he's very approachable. If you are friends with him on social media like Facebook, like I am, I shot him a message when I had questions about the book, and he was kind enough to take time to answer them. Check out his website at lookgreatnaked.com. Okay, so that's about Brad. So let's talk about my overall impression of the book. I thought it was well written and easy to understand. He gave rationale and for the recommendations that he gave. So it wasn't just, here, do this plan. He said, here's the science behind it. Here's the reasoning. This is why you're doing this right now. I thought that was helpful. And the program is easy to follow. Everything's in a table. It's listed out. You can take the book with you to the gym, or you can scan the pages and follow them as well. So easy to follow, well written. He gives the rationale. General overview of the book and the content of the book. It's a 6-month periodization cycle. It has a strength phase, a metabolic conditioning phase, and a muscle building phase or hypertrophy phase. And he also gives nutrition guidance and exercise demonstrations in the book, which I found helpful. Okay, let's talk about the different routines, and he gives you 4 different routines. A break-in routine, and then the periodization routine, the 3 components of that. My review of the break-in routine isn't one of personal experience because I didn't do it. I've been lifting weights for a while. But it looks very reasonable to me. It is very similar to what I do for beginners, and it's a 3-day-a-week program, and it gives you a variety of rep ranges, which I think is good for beginners to do. They should do some high rep, some medium rep, some low rep. Because you're a beginner, you need to be exposed to all of it. So that's my 2 cents on the break-in routine. The first phase of the Max Muscle program is a 2-month-long strength phase with a frequency of 3 to 4 times per week from full body to an upper-lower split. It has big basic movements. You're going to work in the 1 to 5 repetition range for your main exercises, and he does add some assistance exercise in there later. Okay, so if I may indulge you with some considerations, call them critiques or what have you, of the program. And I will mention this later, but Brad, if you're watching this video, feel free, or anybody, feel free to critique me. Leave some comments down below in the box. Let me know what you think of my input, and let's see if maybe that can help some people that are also watching this video. Okay, so with the strength training phase, I would say if you want to cut weight. So Brad didn't talk a lot about nutrition periodization in his nutrition section. He gives you how to gain weight, how to lose weight, how to build muscle. But if you are planning on cutting weight, I would cut weight, I would initiate your fat loss during this strength training phase. The reasoning for this is because hopefully by the time you finish the 2 months of strength training and the 1 month of the next phase, you'll be ready to eat in a surplus by the time you reach the muscle building phase. So it would make sense, the muscle building, that you'd be eating so you can build muscle. So that's my insight on that. On your first week, the very first week that you start the strength training program, you may want to spend some extra time warming up and doing pyramids up into your first working set so that you don't have to guess and you don't have to sell yourself short during those working sets. Okay? Now, this may come intuitively to a lot of people, but this is just my insight. I personally did not feel a great connection with the bent over barbell row. Now, I love this exercise. I've used it a lot, but as I've gotten stronger, I've found that balance is a little bit of an issue for me, and being able to really feel the muscles I'm trying to target in that area. So I will be switching to either a T-bar row or maybe a cable row, but keeping all the other exercises the same in there. Now, Brad does say, you know, here are the exercises. I understand that you may not have this in your gym. You can always do a substitution, and we'll talk more about that later, but it's implied that you can do a substitution if something isn't working for you. Okay, and finally, my last insight on the strength training phase is I would absolutely do some medium intensity aerobics during this phase, because your overall, number one, your overall training frequency is low, so it allows for some extra training volume. Number two, you will regret being out of shape, cardiovascular shape, once you enter into the metabolic phase, which is the next phase. So rather than just become a big fat powerlifter, I recommend you do some running or some aerobics in the strength training phase. And number three, if you do run, you choose to run as your modality of aerobics, you'll get some more lower leg stimulation. So you'll hit the calf and the soleus as well too. Moving on, the metabolic phase. This is a 1 month long phase with a frequency of 3 times a week. Larger exercise selection now, so it's not just big basic compound movements. You will get some isolations. It's a higher rep range, 15 to 20 reps, which felt horrible, and inadequate rest time, which also made this feel horrible. It was almost like one big long drop set. You can really feel the lactic acid building up and the fatigue accumulating as you do this phase. Here are my considerations, critiques, review, what have you. Number one, if you've never trained high repetition and with also short rest time, you're really in for a rough time. This was possibly the most difficult phase. I threw up at least twice during this phase the first time I went through, because I have been just used to resting as long as I want and lifting as heavy as I can. This was completely different, and I'm not sure if I've ever hated training so much as I did this phase. This was when I contacted Brad through social media and said, hey, is this supposed to feel this hard? And he answered my question. Yes, it is. I had difficulty interpreting Brad's guidance of using rate of perceived exertion to push yourself during this phase. So he uses RPE during all of the phases, say, work out at a 9, 8, 9, 10, something like that, 10 meaning failure, 1 being practically doing nothing. So in this phase, you'll be working out a 9 to a 10 RPE, and, this is something I had trouble with because I can hit failure, muscular failure, but I will absolutely not be able to move after that. If I'm used to doing powerlifting and I do a set of 20 squats to failure, I'm not going to be ready to go again in 30 seconds. I just wasn't. I was so tanked that I just got lightheaded. I couldn't even push myself any harder than that. So, and I had to do squats because I don't have a leg press machine. So my question was, do I reach muscular failure or do I reach fatigue failure, just cardiovascular failure? Do I just push myself to the point where I know that I can rest again and at least go, or do I really just push myself to the absolute limit? Now in the book it says muscular failure, but if you're like me, you'll find that that becomes nearly impossible to continue on with the training program. If you're just not used to doing a set of squats to 20 to failure, you're in for a rough ride. Now Brad does say that it does get easier as you continue to do this periodization program. So the second time I went through, it was a lot better. It wasn't exactly what I was supposed to be doing, but it was a lot better. Okay. Limitations and exercise connection should be considered. So one thing that I kind of did intuitively was, for example, on the back squat. Now I know, so I'm doing the back squat. Now I know I could do, for example, maybe 50 more pounds and push to a true failure. But I have to do another set again in 30 seconds. So what I'm thinking was I would do a back squat. I would still have a little bit more to go in my quads, so I'd run over to the leg extension machine, do a set of leg extension to burn out the quads more, then I would rest, and then I would repeat that as prescribed. So, for example, if you have an exercise where you can't, for me it really was just squats, you really can't push yourself because you're getting too fatigued at a cardiovascular level, or you're just getting sick, maybe you could also pair exercises so you can target that muscle. So that's my insight on that. Maybe you'll find that helpful. I don't know if that's something that would be counterproductive. Maybe Brad can comment on that, or one of you guys. Just comment down below. Okay, I think aerobics during this phase may be more appropriate if you do want to take it to a higher intensity, because you are training with lighter weight, so you may want to start incorporating maybe sprints or battle ropes, something like that, as long as it's not impeding your recovery. And finally, one critique I do have on this phase is he has you do straight sets, supersets, and then circuit sets throughout the weeks. I don't necessarily agree with doing a week of circuit training, because this phase is supposed to prepare you for the hypertrophy phase. Now in Brad's program, he doesn't have you do circuit training for your hypertrophy phase. So I think it would be more skill specific or adaptation specific to stick to straight sets and supersets, because that's what you're going to see later down the line. Probably doesn't make a big difference, and if you have something else to say about that, just let me know. So when it comes to the nutrition part of this, I would say either consider continuing to cut during this phase, continue to be in a caloric deficit, because the opportunity to build muscle really isn't as great as it will be in the next phase. So you could continue to cut, or if you did all your cutting during the strength phase, maybe use this month as a way to slowly increase your calories, or do a refeed, whatever you want to call it, until you find maintenance. So you can use this as kind of your buffer month to find maintenance, and then when you get into the max muscle plan, the hypertrophy phase, now you found maintenance. Now you know if you just increase calories by a chunk, you won't waste any time building muscle. Make sense? It does to me. So that's my insight on the metabolic phase. Let's talk about the muscle phase, or in other words, the hypertrophy phase. This is about a 3-month-long phase, and you're going to be building volume. You're going to be accumulating volume over time. So you'll have a training frequency starting off at 3 days a week, working your way up to 6 days a week. Excuse me. You'll have more exercise selection. This is going to be more to medium rep range, sticking to about 6 to 12 reps. And once again, the volume builds slowly. Here's some considerations. Soreness. Okay, soreness isn't always the best indicator of a job well done. Just because you go and you work out and you're sore doesn't mean you're building the most amount of muscle. But I do think this is something you should pay attention to in this phase. Meaning that if you end up doing some exercises that you don't really feel are stimulating your muscle, and you're also not feeling sore from it, that could be an indicator that you're not having a great connection with that exercise. And even though Brad suggests that, for example, you may want to do front squats, you may find it more beneficial for you to do back squats if that's something that hits your quadriceps harder. Okay? Exercise selection changes a lot. As a matter of fact, you never do the same workout twice. I understand the point of doing this. Different exercises means different angles, a recruitment pattern that the muscle is working, and different angles that you're working the muscle and the joint. So the opportunity for hypertrophy is there because you're getting a very well-rounded approach to muscle stimulation. But I also think a counter-argument could be made with keeping kind of like a 50-50. Have a little bit more continuity and adding in variety on top of that. So this is what I did for myself on the second time around, and I found this to what at least I felt I got a much more muscle stimulating workout. For example, on the leg exercises, he may have you one week start off with back squats, the next week start off with leg press, the next week start off with split squats, the next week start off with front squats, okay? And so you're never really doing the same exercise for the first exercise until maybe 4 or 6 weeks down the line. I don't like this because of the skill component of doing something. I need to do it more often than that to really get over just the balance and the skill component so I can really start stimulating the muscle. So for example, instead of doing back squat 1 week, front squat 1 week, split squat 1 week, I might very well this is what I did the second time around. I went ahead and did a high bar back squat as at least one of my exercises, usually my first exercise. Then I would add in the variety where, if 1 week I did back squat, then split squat, then leg extension, the next week I might still do back squat, but my assistance exercises might be something like sissy squat and walking lunge. And I found that to be more effective to where I did get the variety and then I did get the different angles of stimulation, but I was also really able to have at least guaranteed one exercise that I would really connect with, and I would hit it with the back squat. So that's my 2 cents on that. You may feel that you can move around and do different exercises and do just fine. The other thing I liked about that is that if you do that, you also have a little bit more objectiveness to your progression. So you can take the back squats and use that and say, okay, I'm doing this more often, Therefore, I kind of have a benchmark of what I'm doing. So that's my insight on that. Let me give you guys a couple more before we move on. During this phase, with the nutrition, I would have earlier tried to find my maintenance calories, and during each block of this training regimen, so month 1, month 2, and then your last 2 weeks, I would increase calories large in the beginning and then a little bit increase during the next 2 blocks. For example, during the first month of the hypertrophy phase, you may want to go ahead and increase your calories by 500. So at least mathematically, it would appear that you would be gaining 1 pound per week. But then the next month, you may want to increase your calories by another 100, and then the next month, increase it by another 100 to accommodate for the higher volume of which you'll be training and to make sure that you're getting the most amount of muscle for this phase. Okay, here is another insight that I had. It seemed that some exercise pairings almost seemed ridiculous. For example, on one of the protocols, you'll be doing 4 sets of back squats supersetted with 4 sets of Romanian deadlifts, 10 to 12 reps, every set taken to failure. Well, that was just, it was almost impossible to do that with any appreciable amount of weight. By the time I got to my second or third sets of back squats, I could squat heavy on the first set and on the Romanian deadlift, but after the prescribed 60 to 90 seconds of rest, I'm so fatigued that it was just very difficult. It felt more like I was working out my heart than I was my muscles. Now, you guys could comment and you could say, Tony, you're just a fat ass, you're lazy, and you need to start doing more cardio so your recovery time is better. But this was an issue that I had. So I will continue to do aerobics. I did notice that since I started running more, that this does help me recover in between my sets, or it could also be the fact that I'm doing the program again, so I'm more familiar and have more experience. That's just my 2 cents. The other thing is you will feel really burnt out by the end of this training cycle. That's why you'll also have your longest deload after that. It's just something that you have to mentally push through. And I would, in terms of aerobics, I would do this less frequently just in relation to the training volume. So maybe the first month you may want to resume your normal amount of running aerobics. Maybe the next month make it more occasional, and then the last 2 weeks just forget about it because you're really trying to overreach here and peak. So I would certainly just take those 2 weeks off for running. Okay, let's talk about the deload weeks. You're going to deload after every training block, about after every 3 weeks. So you're going to be training with less volume and intensity. And some considerations, personal considerations, is number one, I hate active deloads. So I don't like to go into the gym and lift at 60% intensity and try to work my full body and just kind of get the blood flowing. I don't like doing that. So I think this could also be a good week to work on mobility. So if you need to squat deeper or you need to work on maybe like a range of motion with pressing or something like that, you could really focus on getting a stretch during the lifts. I think there's some good benefit to that. But what I did the second time around is instead of doing a full deload, is I would just skip about 2/3 of the week and then just start back later in the week. So maybe if you wanted me to do a 7-day deload, I would just take 5 days off and then resume again. So I'm not taking a full week off, and it was kind of a way for me to compromise in between the two. And that's how I did it, and it felt fine to me. Something to consider. Okay, let's talk about the nutrition guidelines, and this is something I have a little bit more insight on, just as a registered dietitian. I'm not saying more than Brad, but just in general. I read them, but I followed my own protocol because I do this for a living, so I already have a system of how I do my nutrition. But I will say that it is very similar to what Brad uses, calorie counting, gaining and losing weight, that sort of stuff. I would have put, if I would have had some input on the nutrition section, I would have put more info on the nutrition periodization, so how you might want to match that up with your training blocks. So I think if you're really just starting from a clean slate, you should cut weight during the strength training phase, during the not the hypertrophy, the metabolic phase. You may either want to continue cutting or use that month to find maintenance. And then during the hypertrophy month, I would certainly, unless you have a reason not to, increase your calories and try to build as much muscle as possible. Let's see. Oh, he didn't talk about supplements in there. I would definitely take creatine monohydrate if you want to build the most amount of muscle. Moving on. I agree with his idea of the pre-workout meal of a piece of fruit and coffee. I mean, that will help you mentally if you have some energy, if you're not hungry, if you're not being distracted by hunger. And obviously the caffeine can give you a more focused workout, which can certainly be important during some of these high-volume, short rest time lifting regimens. But if you do want a more recent review of nutrient timing and how important that is, I would read Brad co-authored a review on the topic, and you can check that out on PubMed. Okay, and perhaps this could have been beneficial. This is just my input on maybe Brad could have added more meal plan templates, like here's some examples of how you could eat throughout the day, maybe some recipes, or some strategies like, hey, you'd be a lot better off if you cook ahead of time if you're a busy person, or here's my insight on dining out, something like that. But I will say, look, he isn't writing a nutrition book. He puts nutrition information in there, but there's other resources where you could get that as well. So, it's also good that he didn't droll on and on and on about it. Okay, so some final considerations and comments. One is that if you have a workout partner or if you're trying to get continuity in your training schedule, this may not be the program for you, because you will alternate between 2 days a week of training all the way up to 6 days a week of training. So if you have a training partner or something like that that you want to train with you, that is something that maybe you could consider. Or you could just do the program and make it work for you. Okay, I found it easier to be compliant the second time through with the recommendations and the rest time and all that sort of stuff. So I can feel myself getting better at the classic bodybuilding rep range, 8 to 12 reps, 60 to 90 seconds. I'm finding that I can recover faster in between and train at a higher intensity for more sets. So I'm curious to see what happens the next time I go around and try this again. Final consideration, Dr. Schoenfeld, I invite you, if you would like to, respond to some of the points I've made. And if you don't want to watch this video, I should have mentioned this in the beginning, I'm going to link the notes that I took here down below in the comment box, if that makes it easier for you to check those out. So guys, Brad, if anybody wants to comment, I'd appreciate that. Let's try to keep the conversation productive. I think it would be cool if Brad put a question and answer on his website concerning maybe some details in the book. For example, maybe a little bit about the nutrition periodization. Maybe if he gets some more questions about, should I be so exhausted during the metabolic phase that I feel like I'm going to get sick, maybe he could address that for people that have FAQs here in the book. So that basically concludes my review of the Max Muscle Plan by Brad Schoenfeld. All in all, great program. My critiques weren't really even critiques. It's more of preferences, except for the one thing that I do have a critique on is how often in the muscle building phase you do change your main exercise. If you are sticking with more barbells and dumbbells like I do, There's a little bit of a skill component to it, so you may want to kind of do a hybrid of keeping some things the same while changing others as far as exercise modality. But I could also see another way around that being maybe you just need to do a couple more practice warm-up sets if you are going to change the exercise, just so that it's you know right away what your first working set is going to be. Oh, and certainly take notes of what you're lifting, how heavy you are, so that the second time you go through the program, you can track your progression as well. So guys, check me out. Website down below, foodandfitnessonline.com. Check out our Facebook page as well. Subscribe to our newsletter on the website. And please subscribe to my YouTube channel. My name is Tony Paradis. I'm a licensed dietitian and personal trainer, and I'm with Food and Fitness Online. Thanks for watching my review of the Max Muscle Plan. I'll catch you guys later.